Hey out there, the one and all, it is the RazMansReality. The Florida Gators are the national champions of college football. Big time congratulations to them. What a game this was. I gotta tell you, back and forth and back and forth all game long until the fourth quarter when the Gators drove down and scored the go ahead field goal to go up 17-14, and then subsequently getting the interception on the next drive and driving down, and Tim Tebow ending the game and perhaps his career at Florida as he is contemplating going to the NFL after this year with his signature play action pass to himself, faking like he's going to run, throws to the wide open tight end in the end zone. Florida wins the game 24-17. That was an absolutely tremendous game, and really no question now as to who the national champion is, because if Oklahoma had won with Texas unfortunately getting the victory over the Buckeyes in the Fiesta Bowl, there would have been a question of, okay, Texas beat Oklahoma one-on-one. Does that make them a co-national champion? Well, we don't have to worry about that now. But they're still Utah. Utah goes undefeated, doesn't get a chance at the national championship. And I've said this before 100 times on the hotline, but if you're a new fan of mine via YouTube, let me say that I am not a supporter of the BCS in the least. I think the BCS is the most messed up system in all of sports. It never proves anything. Only I think 2 or 3 times in its history have we ever had a real number 1 versus number 2 game. You know, you had the year that Michigan and Ohio State were both so good, and that's the only time I can really say that team's name is when they earned that right, being a Buckeye fan. But they were both so good, and Ohio State beat Michigan that year in their contest, but record-wise they were identical to Florida, who ended up playing Ohio State that year in the national title. But there was a debate, and a well-deserved debate, is should Michigan be given a second chance to play Ohio State in the national title game. But then there's this whole thing about they don't want 2 teams from the same conference playing each other in the championship game, which to me raises the point once again. Abolish this crappy BCS system and get a college playoff system in place. College football is the only major sport, I'm talking about NFL, NBA, college basketball, you know, the list goes on and on and on. Major League Baseball, every major sport on any level has a playoff system except for college football. It needs to come to an end. Put the top 10 teams at the end of the year, regardless of what level you're on, what conference you're in. Put the top 10 teams in a tournament at the end of the year. Let the top 2 teams go at it in a championship game. And if you still want to have the bowls, fine, have the bowls. But let the bowls be a playoff game. Let the Rose Bowl be the game that determines who the top 2 teams are that are going to play for the national title. Let the Orange Bowl be the other game that determines who the top 2 teams are that are going to play for the national title. That's the way it should be done. TNA last night, don't have time to go over the entire show because it's a 2-hour show and it's only a 10-minute YouTube show. But the highlights were the debut of Heber Heights, Ohio's own Ashley Lane, under the name of Madison Rain, going against Awesome Kong. Unfortunately for her, it was a squash match. Kong gets the victory, but hopefully for Ashley Lane, aka Madison Rain, it means that she will continue to get a shot in TNA because she is a phenomenal performer. And the feud continued between Kurt Angle and Jeff Jarrett as Angle takes out Jeff Jarrett's good friend BG James. Afterwards, the typical frontline versus Mafia promo building up their feud at TNA Genesis, and also going into TNA Genesis, we have new TNA World Tag Team Champions. As what happened last night was a one-on-one matchup between Robert Roode and one half of the number one contenders, Matt Morgan. Roode gets himself injured. Consequent screen, Jay Lethal seized the opportunity of a less than healthy beer money and captured the TNA World Tag Team titles. So now, Sunday at Genesis, you have new champions, Creed and Lethal, defending against former champions, Beer Money, and number one contenders, Matt Morgan and Abyss. Today's Blu-ray review is Iron Man. Iron Man, the story of Tony Stark, a self-made billionaire, inherits his father's company. The main thing they do is weapons manufacturing. Stark goes overseas, has something happen to him which causes him to challenge who he is as a person, and subsequently become Iron Man. Iron Man, one of the best Marvel characters in the universe. So if you have not checked out this movie, check it out. Don't want to give the plot line away. Great bonus features. My favorite was the Invincible Iron Man, which was on disc 1, which showed the progression of the Iron Man comics over the years, and interviewed just about every artist that's ever put his ink to an Iron Man comic. So that was great. But you had 2 discs worth of bonus features on this one, so it's just a great movie overall. Check out Iron Man. With that, this is reality according to the RazMan and RazMan style. It's not just a catchphrase, but a way of life.